So, if you've ever felt that knot in your stomach when a loved one calls for the fifth time to ask if the stove is off, then this is for you. We're going to dive into a really powerful, science backed way to trade that anxiety for certainty. And the secret? It's not about trying to fix their memory, it's about redesigning their world.
Let's just start with this quote because, wow, it really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? She wasn't confused, she just couldn't trust her own memory anymore. This isn't about someone being confused or their mind failing them. It's about losing confidence, that fundamental trust we all have in our own brains. And man, that has to be one of the most unsettling feelings in the world.
So, this really is a crisis of certainty. Let's dive into that. The author tells this story about a woman, we'll call her Mrs. T, and she would call her daughter over and over, just racked with worry. Did I lock the front door? Now, the thing is, she had locked it. The action was done. But that feeling of certainty, that little internal all-clear signal we get, for her, it was just gone. And you can see how this creates this really painful loop, right? For the parent, it's just this constant gnawing worry. And for the caregiver, it's that same frustrating conversation again and again. It is absolutely exhausting for everyone. It's a cycle that's just fueled by uncertainty and, it can really wear down even the strongest, most loving relationships. So the big question is, how do we break out of that cycle? Well, the first step is actually to understand the really simple behavioral science that's going on behind the scenes. It comes from a field called Applied Behavior Analysis, or ABA for short, and honestly, it's way more straightforward than it sounds. Okay, so here's the ideal loop. It's called the antecedent behavior consequence loop. Basically, this is how our brains are wired to do, well, pretty much everything. It's the building block for all our habits. So, first, there's a cue, the antecedent. Let's say you see the front door is unlocked. That triggers the behavior. You go and lock it, and that leads to the consequence. That feeling of safety. Simple, right? So, where does it all go wrong? Well, the problem is, for a lot of older adults, that final step, that consequence, that feeling of safety, it just never lands. And why is that? It's because the signal that's supposed to scream task complete has gone quiet. It's like the brain does the action, but it never gets the receipt. There's no proof, no final signal that says, okay, we're good, you can move on now. And that brings us to the core idea here, and it's a really powerful shift in how we think about this. Instead of trying to force the brain to remember, what if we just let the environment do the remembering for us? Exactly. The goal isn't to fix the memory, it's to externalize it. I mean, think about that. We're not trying to be memory coaches here, we're becoming environmental designers, and that's a huge difference because you're not trying to fix a person, which, let's be honest, can feel really frustrating and kind of judgmental. Instead, you're just moving the job of remembering from their mind onto a physical thing in their world. It's so much more empowering. Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we become these environmental designers? Well, we use a toolkit of really simple but super effective visual cues. These are real, tangible things that don't judge. They just provide those clear, loud and clear signals our brains are craving. And it really boils down to three powerful types of cues. We've got location cues. These answer the question, where is it? Then there are completion cues, which confirm, yep, it's done. And finally, sequential cues, which help with, okay, what's next? Each one tackles a different flavor of uncertainty. Now, before we jump into examples, there's one guiding principle here that is absolutely crucial. And it's this. Clarity is compassion. Seriously, a good cue is not a tiny sticky note with a bunch of scribble text. No, it has to be simple, it has to be high contrast, and it has to be right in the line of action. Making it super easy to see, that is an act of care. Okay. Let's talk about completion cues, because these are an absolute game changer for that whole double-checking thing. So for the front door, imagine a simple laminated sign that just says locked with a big check mark. After you lock the door, you physically hang it on the knob. Boom, final, undeniable signal. Or for the stove, maybe you have a magnet that you move from a red zone on the fridge to a green zone when the stove is off. That physical act, that's the proof. These cues are like the big, bright green light the brain needs to finally stop worrying and just move on. And this same idea works for the other types of cues too. Take a location cue. This isn't about training yourself to remember where you put the keys. It's about putting a big, bright, can't-miss-it hook right by the door so you just don't have to think about it. And sequential cues, that could be a simple checklist for leaving the house. It just takes the mental load off, you know? It lets the brain focus on one little step at a time.
Now, when you start putting these cues in place, something really profound happens. It totally changes the role of the caregiver. You go from being, well, a source of friction to being a source of empowerment. I mean, just look at this comparison. The old way, you're a memory tester. You're always asking, did you remember to do this? Did you remember that? It just creates doubt, and it feels like a pop quiz nobody wants to take. But the new way, you're an environmental designer. You're creating a world that helps them remember. See the difference? You're not testing the person anymore. You're supporting them. And that, well, that changes absolutely everything.
Okay, I get it. This all sounds great in theory, but where on earth do we even start? The key, and this is really important, is to start small. Just one simple, totally non-intimidating change. That's it. The author actually calls this a safety scavenger hunt, which I love. Here's how it works. Step 1. Just pick one thing, the one area that causes the most repeated anxiety. Is it the keys, the stove, the garage door? Step 2. Ask yourself, what's the missing signal here? What's that missing task complete cue? Step 3, introduce just one simple visual. And step 4, just watch. See what happens. See if that constant anxiety starts to fade. And that is really the big takeaway. This isn't about some massive, overwhelming home makeover project. Nope. It's about one small, really strategic change that leads to a huge emotional outcome. You are literally turning a moment of pure anxiety into a moment of pure certainty.
It all starts with just one cue. To change just one behavior. To create one moment of calm at a time. So I'll leave you with this to think about. When we stop trying to fix a person and instead focus on fixing their environment, how could a world that's intentionally designed for success completely change a life that you know? Something to consider. Thanks for joining me.